it to me! Give it to me! Give it to me! Just give it! Damn!
I ain't even gonna beat around the bush. I'm down bad. I'm not saying I have a type, but you already know who I'm getting the nosebleeds for. I bring up Maki Zenin not only because I'd go feral for her, but because she's one of the main characters in the Jujutsu Kaisen prequel manga, Jujutsu Kaisen 0. In this week's episode of Anime Only, we'll be talking about everything you should know before watching the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 film. Roll intro. Alright, so for this episode, we'll be going through the usual. We'll be talking about what JJK0 is all about and why it's important. If you're looking to go into this film 100% blind, you might want to check out, but we'll be keeping everything at a synopsis level, so you don't need to worry about any spoilers. Real quick, just so you know the movie facts, it's scheduled for a theatrical release in Japan on December 24th, 2021, and Studio Mappa will be producing it. Alright, on with the video. Before JJK0 was called JJK0, it was actually titled Tokyo Metropolitan Cursed Technical School. This 4-chapter manga written by Gege Akutami began serialization in the Jump Giga magazine on April 28, 2017. The manga ended up performing really well, and it gained so much popularity that Akutami decided to make a sequel series to it. 1 year later, Jujutsu Kaisen was born. As for his original 4-chapter project, he renamed it Jujutsu Kaisen 0, effectively making it a prequel to his new series. Since it was a prequel before it even knew it was a prequel, JJK0 feels very separated from the rest of Jujutsu Kaisen. However, since everything in Zero is canon, the things that happen in it are still very relevant to the overall plot of JJK, especially considering where we are currently in the manga. As for the Jujutsu Kaisen 0 movie, it's definitely going to be required watching because the characters in it have storylines that eventually link into the main story. But speaking of characters, who's in JJK 0? Okay, important to know, but Yuji, Nobara, and Fushiguro are not in it. Not because they aren't relevant to the plot, but because Akutami hadn't created them yet. Gojo, however, is in it, and Panda, Inumaki, and my favorite, Maki Zenin, make up the main protagonist. The main character is named Yuta Okotsu, and in him, you can see where Akutami was coming from when he wrote Itadori. To describe the plot of Zero real vaguely, Yuta's got problems. His childhood friend Rika Orimoto died in a traffic accident and ended up cursing him as a result. However, her cursed spirit is a little bit different, because instead of hurting Yuta, she's actually deathly overly protective of him. This endangers everyone around Yuta, which leads to the Jujutsu higher-ups wanting him to be executed. Just like he does for Yuji, Gojo steps in and basically says, "Hey, don't kill my dude," and then he transfers him into Jujutsu High. From there, it's basically a story of Yuta trying to get his curse under control while also having to fight people with bad intentions. Pretty simple, but that's really all there is to it for JJK0. It's a very compartmentalized story and will work well as a film. However, there's a lot in this seemingly simple story that comes back later down the line. While Zero is definitely a worthy prequel, I'd be lying if I said it was the best part of JJK. I think I should mention that Zero is a piece to the story that ends up feeding into what becomes the best parts of JJK. Putting it simply, you really need to watch this film in order to appreciate everything that's about to come next. I'll save this more for an episode we'll drop when the second season gets announced, but JJK's story has a major shift just beyond the point in which the anime leaves off. The first season ends on manga chapter 63, and I would say mostly everything beyond that point requires knowledge about JJK0. The prequel serves a great basis for understanding Gojo and his old friend Suguru Geto. These two share a relationship that comes to the forefront of the story in the arc after Death Painting. Yuta doesn't exactly go away either, as he's relevant to the JJK story right now in the manga, and as for my curse tool using Queen, there's a few extra details about the beef she has with her family and what her goals are. After the Death Painting arc, Akutami found a way to seamlessly incorporate the elements first set up in Zero, and he really delivered on it. Even more incredibly, I'd say that the next parts coming for JJK are where you really get to see this series shine, especially in a certain arc that everyone on the internet is talking about. That arc is the turning point for Jujutsu Kaisen's story. But without JJK0, there's a lot in it and a lot after it that would feel a bit uncalled for. Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is pretty dang important in the grand scheme. Somehow, it's an isolated prequel that existed before the actual series it comes from, yet it manages to become the window into the material that comes next. Up until chapter 63, JJK feels like a hype monster series that jumped from epic fight to epic fight. Much of the meat in JJK's story, however, has yet to be revealed in the anime, but everything starts first with JJK0. With this film, the details behind the larger plot to Jujutsu Kaisen will become much more realized. But yeah, that's just about it. Not gonna lie, it's kinda hard to make a video about a manga that only has 4 chapters. But what I'd like you to take away from this is that JJK0 is an integral piece to the future of Jujutsu Kaisen's anime. So pay attention to what this film has to introduce, because ultimately, the entire story of Jujutsu Kaisen is merely a precursor to the incident in Shibuya.